What's going on, folks? Welcome back to Bev Bois, your one-stop shop for all your energy drink reviews and performance talks once in a while. Today, I'm Christian, almost
I'm
forgot that
Brian.
part, and we are the Bev Boys. Today we got a good one for you. We're doing our first ever Q&A, question and answer. So we put up a couple polls on the gram, and we get some good questions. So I'm excited to do this. First time for everything. Shout out to all of you who submitted your questions. They will be answered today, whether you like it or not, in a way that you like it or not, they will get answered. So should we uh should we just hop right into this thing coming out hot, or should
I
we, do
think
you got a
so.
drink? I got a drink too.
I got a
Let's
drink.
let's
I
let's
got a drink.
unveil. Dude, is that what I think it is? Yes. Dude, I had one of those the other day. I'm not gonna spoil it for you.
I've had a sip of the green apple and it's unreal. But I got
Yeah.
the Jolly Rancher
So
C4 Energy Blue Raz. Ooh, crisp, little vapor coming out. Oh my God.
I
Oh.
had I got a story about that actually. So the gym I go to back home, shout out Iowa Strength, is sick. You can buy a 12 pack of energy drinks and like mix and match
Ooh.
between any brand. So I usually do that when I come home. And they had all of the Jolly Rancher flavors. So I picked up that one, picked up the watermelon one, picked up the green apple one. And I had the blue raz one before there happened to be this kettlebell press competition like the day I came home or the day after I came back from Chicago. And all it was is sit on a bench, no back support, two, I think it was 26-pound kettlebells, 1 minute AMRAP. So 60-second, just as many reps as you can get. And like I got, because the prize was if you won, you got to take the kettlebells home. And then I think like second, third got a free T-shirt. Sad to
Mhm.
say that I did not place. I didn't. I was hoping I was like, okay, let me get a T-shirt. There's probably some monster out there that's gonna do like crazy reps.
130.
I was gonna say, yeah, there was multiple of those people actually. I think the winner got like 86 in a minute, which is just
Holy shit. Just
ridiculous. Yeah, like it was ridiculous, and I think I ended up with 60. So one per second, I'll take that. I definitely
mhm.
burned out at the end. I came to the conclusion that you don't have to go as far up when your arms are just huge. So if I just get bigger arms, I'll do better at that. But I had one of those before I did that. Long story.
Oh yeah.
What do you think?
First impression, it smell like can looks cool because it's obviously the C4 can. It's iconic. It looks like the frozen bomb till you flip to the side and then you just have like all the Jolly Ranchers right there. Ingredients wise, it's the same blend as all the other C4s. So you get your carnosine, you have beta alanine in there, you have your ethical, you have 2 grams of beta alanine in there, 200 milligrams of caffeine, some potassium. Obviously, it's caffeine anhydrous. Tastes and smells just like a blue Jolly Rancher. It's the same way as like the green Jolly Rancher one that I tasted. It's just liquefied form. So like for anybody who likes lean, you'll probably love it.
That's hilarious. Good stuff. I got a drink that I've had before, but it was just too good to not have today, and that is the black cherry vanilla Gorilla Mind. Um,
Vanilla
I had to
Gorilla.
be, I got
That's
to be
you.
locked in for this Q&A. This is probably one of my favorite flavors. It's tough to beat the black cherry vanilla Gorilla Mind.
The only thing I think that comes close was that like like
That strawberry
strawberry.
candy's good. The watermelon candy's also solid.
hmm
I picked up a
Oh,
couple other flavors
oh,
too that I haven't tried yet.
lemon's pretty good. They have like a lemon head one,
Hmm.
and the blackberry lemonade one. That's good, but it's more lemonade than it is like anything else. The
Yep.
only one that I just don't like is that tiger's blood, which I haven't seen in forever.
Yeah, that shit was trash.
Oh, that's a good pop.
Got some vapor too.
Oh yeah, give me a little sip of that. Oh.
Yeah, that's tough to beat. One thing I've
Yeah.
noticed about the Gorilla Mines as well is like sometimes if you like drink a super cold beverage, like it'll kind of like irritate your teeth a little bit depending on like
Yeah,
how sensitive your teeth is. But I don't really get that as much with the Gorilla Mines. I don't know if it's like how they sweeten it or
I've noticed that too. Like even Ghost sometimes, like it'll I have sensitive teeth, and like even Ghost will be like, ooh, that kind of like rattles me a little bit. C4 does it
mm,
sometimes if it's too cold. Gorilla Mind and Bum Energy. Those are like the two ones. Like no matter how crisp and cold they are, never have that like rattling to my teeth.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Hmm.
Well, without
Should
further
we?
ado, should we get into these questions?
Yeah. Should we just kind of go back and forth with the ones that you got, the ones that I got?
Yeah, I'll
Let's do
start it
it.
off. I'll start it off here. Okay, so shout out to my shout out to my boy Canyon Cooksley. Um, really good friend of mine, about to be the best man in his wedding, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to that bachelor party in Vegas. We'll
Oh
see how
yeah.
that goes. His question: what are some cultural aspects of the gym you enjoy or don't enjoy? This takes me back to the bro days of just being a meathead, watching fitness YouTube, Christian Guzman, Max Tuning, just being a gym bro. I would say it depends on the setting. Obviously, your chain gyms are going to be a lot different than like a local gym versus like a gym at a university. Um, they all have pros and cons. It's funny. I was working out at the 24-hour fitness over the last like month or so, so I kind of got a taste of that chain gym life. Not a huge
Hmm.
fan, but it's kind of interesting to people watch. I would say
Yeah.
just in general, cultural aspects. I mean, it's whether you enjoy working out or don't work out. Like if you're there, you're at least doing something that's like good for your health, like moving your
Hmm.
body. So that's cool just to have a bunch of people doing something that's good for them, regardless of whatever else is going on in their life. So I really like that. Um, the environment can really be kind of, you can make or break an environment with like the sound, like the music. Is it too loud? I think especially like in a college weight room or like in a team setting, the music is like a huge part of the environment. So that's something that can make or break it. I'm trying to think. I feel like I haven't been like a gym bro in a long enough time to know what like cultural aspects. I haven't never really worked out at like a hardcore powerlifting gym. Tell you what I don't like is those gyms that think they're bougie. They're chain gyms. They think they're bougie, and they tell you not to slam the weights. That's
Yeah.
that's freaking stupid. That's ridiculous.
I've I've been to so I used to travel a lot for work and like one thing I'd always do would be like find like the local more like kind of gritty like powerlifting style gym just because they always had the weird equipment they'd have the SSBs and I wanted to obviously do the fun stuff when I lifted. One thing I really like about those gyms is that like when people go there like they are pretty like as much as like it is like powerlifting or like strongman type oriented, they're really inviting. That's what I really like about those gyms is that there's a you know 800-pound deadlifter in the corner hitting his workout, and he's more than happy to go hit his workout while there's, a mom of three who's just getting some general fitness in and moving around. Like that was like the most comforting one, and they'll have music blaring, and she's got her own headphones on, he's got his headphones, and it's just it's a really cool environment of like everyone's here, like the differences are left at the door, which is what I really like about those gyms. What I hate is like the more commercial style gyms that, like you said, are like they try to be like really bougie, and everyone in there is like they all think their shit doesn't stink. And those are the gyms too that also usually have the worst fucking equipment.
Yeah, I went. There was a time where I was just bumming like free passes off gyms, and like I
I'm
went to
about
this
to I'm
one.
about to do that.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm not gonna. I'm only here for like a week or so, or 2 weeks. Like I can just bum free passes. I went to this one. Like I'm not gonna lie, they had like super nice equipment, but I was just like, it was expensive as hell if you wanted to buy a membership. They had a. I didn't know this was a thing in gyms either. An annual fee like you would get on a freaking credit card. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah, they don't do that. They don't do that at the gym I go to back here. But
The
yeah,
other
annual fees, and then there was one where it's like, oh, you can't leave your bag on the ground, no dropping weights. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I feel like the 24 was like still a chain gym, but like affordable enough that I knew it wasn't going to be bougie and stuck up to an extent. So I kind of settled on that.
the other
But
one that I the other thing I really hate too. Um, like I like every gym is starting to try to do this. Like I don't like the gyms that try to offer everything. This is just me, but like I don't need a tanning bed and this room and this room and this thing and this thing because most of the time the people are going there, they're going there to work out. Like in some way, like yeah, you can offer like a basketball court or some shit like that. I don't need this to be everything I could ever imagine because I'm gonna pay for all that shit and probably use it once. Like,
And I want it to be like that makes it almost too comfortable. Like
yeah,
I don't want it to be like just a social event.
yeah.
Like I hate how air conditioned these places are getting too. Maybe it's
I
just
don't
me.
need it.
Like I like
I want
I
to
want to
sweat.
sweat. Yeah,
I
like I
want to
want to
sweat,
sweat.
dog. I'm in a hoodie.
Like I want
We're literally in crew necks right now. Like we want to be hot. I
yeah,
don't
like I
want to
want
be
to be hot.
cold.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm not trying to like I want to know I actually worked out. Like
Yeah,
regardless of like that's not that's not the sign of a good workout, but to me it's partly the sign of a good workout.
yeah.
And like it's just I want a gym that has like, in the summer it's hot, they just have a garage door and they open it up.
You
That's
feel that
that's
heat.
yeah, like that's what I want. It's getting like to the point where it's just like you don't even get uncomfortable when you go to the gym. It's I
Exactly.
don't know. It's no bueno. So something I like, yeah, I think the people obviously make it too. Like the owner of the gym I go to, super down to earth, and it's really cool to see. Like they started, their space was like, I feel like it was like the size of a bedroom, and they've kind of slowly evolved and gotten bigger, added more equipment. Um, it's always kind of interesting to see like they'll add a random piece of equipment, and that piece of equipment has a story behind it. It was here, it was made in a different country. I got it from this random guy, and he got it from this random guy. Um, and that's just the whole gym is just made of stuff like that. So there's certain stuff that I do like. Like if a place has a sauna, that's definitely a plus for me.
Give them
Um,
on the sauna.
yeah,
I fuck with the
the
sauna.
sauna's chill, but I don't need like a jacuzzi, freaking steam room,
Yeah.
tanning bed. I don't need all that shit. So
I will say there's one thing I definitely do not like about gym culture, and that's like the fadness of a lot of it, where this will be the new thing. Like right now, it's cold tubs. Everybody loves a cold tub, but you don't need a cold tub 24/7. You need a cold tub if you're doing like a 2-day competition and you need a quick turnaround the next day. The average
right,
person doesn't need a cold tub.
no, you're not a pro athlete.
No.
Yeah,
And if you are a pro athlete, if you're in the off season, you need the DOMs. Like you don't need to mitigate
yeah.
that soreness. Like you
Only if
want
you're playing a
that because
back-to-back game, or you really need to
exactly.
recover quick.
Exactly. Like I don't like the fadness aspect of it, or like it'll be this diet where everyone has to do this, or like this new supplement, or this new movement. Everyone's got to do this. It's like you can do any of that shit. Like, but the best piece about it is that, and this is like kind of like I hate it, but I also love it, is that none of it really matters. Like you can do a great workout or a great training session with a simple barbell and some weights, or you can use the $1 million facility and probably get, and to some extent, with just literally the intent and the creative thought process, the same
Very similar
results.
results.
Yeah,
Yeah, the same.
that's one thing I do love about it.
Yeah, I feel like you see it with the clothes too. There's always
Hmm.
a new weird style of gym outfit, new brand that people are strutting.
Now, if
Which,
any of those guys want to hit us up and sponsor the podcast, I'm okay with
yeah, I
that.
was just
But
saying. Now that I just talked shit about that, how about you give me some free clothes? uh, all right, should we
um,
move on to the next question?
yeah, this one comes from one of my boys, A.B. Benham, big time Benham. He's at University of Virginia. He is the baseball strength
Go
and conditioning
Who's?
coach. Go Who's. He asked me for a review on Rogues. So anyone who might know me,
Not the
Zinski's to
exercise equipment.
I've switched from Zins to Rogies. Um, I like them. They're cheap. They're number one. They're way cheaper. I get two for $7. They're a North Carolina brand, metal tin, so like that a lot better. Pouches are a little bit thicker. I'll give them that. But the flavoring, you feel like it has a little bit more bite. Um, Overall, big fan.
I did
Big,
not know
big,
they
big fan.
were Carolina brand.
I
Where are
believe
they
they
made?
are. Uh,
Does it
I
say
don't
on the
know.
tin?
This one says Rogue Holdings is in Jacksonville, Florida, but someone told me that they were, maybe I'm wrong, but someone told
Maybe
me
they
they
have a
were in North
factory.
Carolina. Yeah, I think they might have a
Hmm,
factory. But
interesting.
overall, I got turned down to him from Kel, who was on our podcast before. He flipped me over, and it's just for the price, the little bit of bite that you get, and just the accessibility. They're more available, especially when the Zyn had the shortage. Like I like Rogues, man. I'm a big fan of Rogies, and they're They taste great. That's one thing that's for sure. They give me the same nicotine. They're still the same nylon pouch with pure nicotine in it. Uh, big fan. But that's that one. Shout out Andrew. There's your
There you
little
have
review.
it. Shout out Big Time Benham.
Big time Benham.
Um, let's build off that with a question from Hunter Lakey. Shout out Hunter Lakey. Shout out Baseball Performance Network. They've been putting out some really awesome stuff. Definitely recommend you check those guys out.
Hmm.
Um, on the topic of nicotine, he asks, about nicotine cycling for performance. Um, you want to hit on this one? I did a little bit of research. It was funny because I looked it up and first it came up with like research on nicotine and like cyclists.
Yeah,
It didn't look like there was a lot of impact there. Um, I did find that I don't think it's been studied a whole lot within like a lot of sports. I did
yeah,
find a little bit of benefit on like archers. I think it's actually might be banned in like some type of archery competition because of that,
yeah.
motor control aspect, the cognition aspect. It did find some benefits with like archers. I wouldn't be surprised if it was beneficial to people that play like high level chess or like
Video games
stuff
with
like that.
esports.
Yeah, like esports, I feel like it's probably big in there. With like, I mean, it's a stimulant. Um, my take on it, I don't have a ton of experience. Uh, I've used it for cognitive like benefits when I was studying for
Hmm.
my CSCS. I used the gum for a little bit of that. So I do feel like it definitely gives you a cognitive edge. I don't think there's any debate to that. You got to remember though, like for performance, obviously recovery is a big part of that. And while it is a stimulant, that could potentially impair recovery depending on what time you take it. It's going to put you. It's not going to put you in an ideal state for recovery.
Yeah. So I guess like my school of thought process on it is you can't really cycle on and off of it, to be honest, to see like a true benefit. Like maybe because it's the same thing as when people, whether they do like a caffeine cycle or if they, stop drinking, their tolerance then goes back to lower to like baseline. So that way when they do take it, they'll see a bigger effect on it. You just be like me and use it every single day in lieu of like an Adderall or a Ritalin. Like I'm not going to take an amphetamine, but I'll take a pouch of nicotine. Um, I think its effects on performance, it's definitely like it's neuroprotective. That's number one, but it also is a nootropic in a sense that it's going
Mm-hmm.
to give you the aspect, just like if you were to take Adderall in that same, probably a lesser extent, but you'll have that like that lock in, quote unquote, which is really cool, and I do like that. I think in the aspect of taking it away from your lifts, you know you aren't going to be as like sympathetic to recover, or sorry, parasympathetic to recover, to be able to get that kind of going. But in terms of like taking it pre-session or intra, I don't recommend it to a lot of athletes because it's obviously not a stimulant that they can have, um, especially in the NCAA. But for the average person while they're working out, if they tend to get very sidetracked, one pouch, like with your pre-work, like obviously like drink your pre-workout if you're taking that, or your black coffee, whatever, but you'll have two stimulants on there, and it does allow you to kind of like zone in on your attention span in some way, shape, or form. Now, in terms of like esports, archery, and things like that, where it takes a vast amount of concentration, this is where it kind of gets a little tricky because it's not like a beta blocker where it's going to reduce like your heart rate. It is an upper because it is a stimulant. So it
Mm-hmm.
is going to, while it is a nootropic and you'll be like more focused, it's likely that some people may have an adverse effect where they're going to be a little shaky, this or that, and they might be a little bit off because it's going to elevate your heart rate. It's going to be a stimulant in some way, shape, or form, just like caffeine
Yep.
would be. If you're able to mitigate that, not by taking a beta blocker, but by like moderating your dosage, I think it can be something that will give you some kind of edge. That I there's not a ton of research on it, so I can't say yes, it is, yes, it won't. I would assume just based off the fact that it is neuroprotective and it is a nootropic in some way, shape, or form, very similar to alpha GPC in the aspect of locking in or honing in on that attention span aspect. I could see it having a pretty good effect of maybe giving you, indirectly giving you a better session because you're just more intentful and like not as maybe a space cadet like wandering around getting bored during your session or whatever. Like you might be a little more honed in on what you're doing in that moment and be present in the moment because of that. Now, some people might get sick and throw up.
Yeah,
Um,
tolerance is definitely a factor.
yeah. But I could see it potentially giving some, and I'm not a doctor, so don't take this as medical advice, but I could see it potentially taking, giving some aspect to a more quality session if you look at it from like the attention span aspect. I don't think it will naturally just boost you as, it's not going to boost your blood flow like an L-citrulline will. It's not going to
Yeah,
buffer any
it's
pH.
a vasoconstrictor actually,
Yeah, so it's actually going to reduce your blood flow. Um,
and
so
potentially increase the blood pressure as well, from what I've read.
yeah, with
Um,
it, just by being a vasoconstrictor, you'll naturally have higher
yes,
blood pressure because it's like putting your thumb on the end of a hose. Um, but I could see it potentially having some good effects while also having some adverse effects. So depending on what you're looking for out of that session, one might outweigh the other. But that's one
yeah,
asshole's opinion.
yeah. No, I think the main takeaway is it's definitely like a cognitive benefit over a, I want to say over a physiological one, but it's not going to like help you increase like muscular strength. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like, from what I looked at, I looked at a study on cyclists. It didn't really increase the time to exhaustion. According to this review, it is like it's not prohibited; it's banned by WADA. So
Mm.
if you take it as that, it definitely works in some capacity. Um,
Yeah. They
so I
don't
think
ban
it's
something
because
that doesn't work.
yeah. So I think it's definitely like a cognitive enhancer. I think the big thing that people are probably, I mean, obviously, like it can be addictive. So then you could be just reliant on it, which is probably the bigger problem. I think
Yeah.
short term it can be effective. Long term, I don't know if I would recommend it as a solution for sustained like physical performance,
Yeah.
but to each his own, you know.
The other aspect too is that it's also going to be because it's a stimulant, you're going to lose appetite. So depending on who it is, people might use it to cut weight. People might, but if you're looking to make weight or make gains, whether for being like I said, the average gym goer, if you're trying to get bigger, you're trying to add mass, it's probably not going to help you in that aspect because you're not going to feel hunger. It's going to be an appetite suppressant in some way, shape, or form. That's just like why smokers will naturally start to become more skinny or they'll gain more weight when they stop smoking because they'll have that hunger again.
Mm,
Because you don't like that satiety isn't going to be there anymore.
yeah. So definitely pros and cons.
Hmm.
Kind of a loaded question. Again, definitely wouldn't recommend it to any of your athletes just because
Yeah,
they're for obvious
don't.
reasons. But I don't know. It's interesting because like obviously smoking like tobacco and chewing is much worse than
Yeah,
the pouches and the gum. I think the vaping is still bad, and I think people don't really
yeah.
notice the effects. We're probably gonna notice those effects years down the road. I think it's worse than worse than like the pouches and gum, but probably not quite as bad as smoking. If I had to make a guess, but I don't know.
It's a hard part depending on what's going to be in that, the whatever the juice or the
That
liquid is in
juice,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, because there's going to be carcinogens that are in there that you might see even worse effects than a traditional cigarette without the filter or whatever it might be. But like you said, we won't know that because e-cigarettes only came out in really like popularity in, like around the 2010s, late 2000s. There's no 30-year longitudinal study on this that's going to tell us what those adverse effects are because they weren't created. No one was going to, stand next to a rig like a giant hookah and smoke on something.
right,
So,
yeah, and it's different. In this case, it's interesting because usually when people think of something that's natural, they usually tend to think it's better, you know, the naturalistic fallacy. But in the case of nicotine, I think the synthetic stuff is probably a little bit better. It's more clean, and obviously the natural stuff is the stuff you're getting in cigarettes and chew.
yeah,
So um,
it's been ultra filtered. It's like a
it's
micro
clean.
filtered milk.
Yeah, it's clean Yeah, it's like clean nicotine as they're
Yeah.
calling it. So um, yeah, definitely an interesting thing to think about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good nicotine talks on Bev Boys.
Always good for that one.
Yep.
Um, I do have one for you, and this one's more of an opinion piece. And this one was brought to me by Luke Green. Shout out Luke Green, VP of Ops at Team Builder. I love this question. But what is your energy drink comparison or energy drink equivalent to the almighty airport beer, right? Everybody loves an airport beer. It's like there's no rules. You get to just have it and it's like guilt free. You get in the airport, whether you're coming off a vacation or going to one, or you're coming from a work trip or going one, it's like, oh, this is so good. What's the energy drink equivalent to that?
I feel like for me, it's got to be the White Monster. Like it's always going to be reliable. It's classic. It's affordable. Like I can't really think of anything else that is can really compare to that. It's got to be like a OG like Monster Ultra, either that or maybe like the orange one or the purple one,
Hmm.
like a classic flavor. 'Cause, if I think of this is like a bougie beer that you'd find at like an ale house, Grill of Mind. Um, kind of the same with like a C4 or a Ghost. But I don't know. What are you thinking?
I'm not gonna give you a brand, but I'm gonna give you a situation. For me, the energy drink equivalent to an airport beer is the energy drink that you buy when you're going to like a new gym or like you're traveling and you're going to hit up
Oh,
a local spot that you're going to train at and they got the cooler. There's no
ooh,
rules. There's no rules.
okay.
The money's fake when you go in there. Yeah, you're going to pay $1 extra. Who cares? You need a little pick me up and you want to feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. Maybe I might go like a Rain then. I feel
Yeah.
like a Rain is like I don't drink them often, but like when I know I want to have like a good workout, just red line my shit with 300
Yeah.
milligrams of caffeine.
Gas that
Like
baby and just rip it.
yeah.
But yeah, that's my equivalent. Like I'll good example of this is like I was in New Orleans in 2019, I think it was. No, 2018. I think going into 2019, whatever. And I was there for New Year's. And they had a sick like gym. This place was it was an old factory. They reworked into having like a Globo gym like in the front, and then the back was like full powerlifting and like CrossFit, like opened up the bay doors that opened up to the dock, and that was all turfed out. And I flew there, so I'm not gonna have everything. But when you walk in, they had like a little counter, and you could buy energy drinks and pre-workout. And I was like, well, I grabbed the energy drink. I think it was like a C4 or whatever, and I'm like, it's $4. I'm like, who cares? Like
Fuck
I'm
it.
having a good time, man. You crack that open, you like scanned your little fob, and I was walking. I'm like, life is good, and then you just crush a workout.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a good analogy. I like that. I like
Yeah,
that. Let's build off that. Um, I got a shout out to Sam Schmitz, director of sports performance, Simpson College, for this question. Go check out Simpson Performance on Instagram, by the way. They're doing good stuff. Do you have a favorite energy drink to sip and a different one that you would prefer for a pre-workout? That's a good one because there
that's a
is a
really good one.
difference.
There's a
There is a
big difference.
difference.
For me, a sipper, any of the Ghost Energies, that's a sipper because the flavor is so good. You don't want to slam it and be done with it. The Welch's grape juice, the sour pink lemonade, that's my perfect 10. The the Phase Pop, the citrus one, those even just the basic flavors. Those are all sippers. You just enjoy them. You would drink them even if they weren't caffeinated.
Yes.
Those are the sippers. And then like favorite like pre-workout one, that's probably gonna be like any of the really loaded up energy drinks, like a C4, where you're going to get the beta alanine, you're going to have the caffeine, the little performance enhancements in there. A Gorilla Mind with the big nootropics in there. Although you can kind of sip Gorilla Mind and you'll enjoy
Yeah.
it. But like this one, like if I was going to work out, I'm gonna gas this. Same
Mm.
thing with like like the Monster Ultra Zeros. I'm just gonna gas it. Rain, I'm gonna gas it. All those like super loaded up ones, those are the ones I'm gonna gas and go to like as a pre-workout. Whereas like as the flavor gets better and better and better and better into like this more refined one, Ghost, Bum Energy, Gorilla Mind, those like really perfected flavor profiles, that's my sipper.
Yeah, I'm very similar. Like for sipping, Gorilla Mind because of the nootropics. Same thing with Ghost. Same thing with like Bum. And then for like a pre-workout, I would say like a 3D or a
Oh
Rain
yeah.
or a C4. That they're pretty simple formula wise. Besides the C4, um, so there's definitely a difference. The stuff that's just like high caffeine, like red line, like basically straight caffeine and nothing else. That's more of a pre workout. C4 is obviously pre workout, and then to sip something that's going to be like more steady, ideally, like with some nootropic formulas in there. So like a Ghost, Gorilla Mind, Bum. I'm trying to think what else.
First form, first form. That's like a
First
sipper one.
form.
That one's it kind of that one's a fence sitter because you can gas those because they're really like
Yeah,
lighter carbonated, but like the flavor's really good. You want to sip it and it's got nootropics.
yeah. I don't have Celsius very often, but when I do, it's usually a sipper because it's
I
the
usually
green
gas
tea, so
those.
it's a little bit smoother. Okay, that's where we differ a little bit. Um, here's kind of build off that. Do you have a certain one for like a long car drive?
See that one, the only one that's the one that has my heart, no matter where I am in the world, long car drive. Give me that Monster Ultra Zero. They're at every gas station in America. You can
That's
pick it up and
exactly
you're
what I
gonna,
was thinking.
and that's like that's a blue collar man's love letter right there.
Yep, it's got to be.
Well,
That's funny. All right, so that's that. Yeah, definitely a difference. They're not
yeah,
all the same. They are not all the same.
not all energy drinks are created equal, and that's okay
No.
because each one was created for a different purpose. And I think that's what people need to realize.
Yeah, it's deeper than energy drinks. It's philosophical, bordering
Yeah.
on the religious.
Um, I guess kind of building off of that, Mike Tucker, shout out to the boy. Known him for a long time. Um,
Nova.
other Mike Tucker. He was a GA at
Oh,
CSP back in the day, previously at Bridgewater
okay.
College. But also
Take that
shout out
back.
Mike Tucker at Nova. A
Yeah,
great
shout
guy.
out Nova anyway.
Both Mike Tuckers are great guys. Uh, what are what are your top three caffeinated beverages? Not just energy drinks. What's your top three caffeinated beverages?
Okay.
I know, loaded question.
Yeah, that is interesting. Um, I'm not as big of a coffee connoisseur as Brian, but I do like coffee, and I think I've taken to it more, probably in the last,
Mhm.
really since I started working for the Cubs. I drank a lot more coffee down in the DR, and the coffee's good down there, and just not as many energy drinks. So I'd go like a good coffee. Um, not nothing in specific. Like I don't mind just like a black coffee with a little bit of like whole milk or something like that. Once in a while I have a fancy Starbucks drink if it's getting paid for, but not gonna go out of my way to get it. I'll go that at like three, and then I would say my number one is like any. I got to go like Gorilla Mind energy drink. It's just tough to beat, and then Ghost would probably be in that second spot. I don't know if I want to get more specific than that because there's just too many. It could depend on the day. Trying to think of what other. I'm not a big like pre-workout like powder guy. Um, just not for the most part. Would rather have the carbonation,
Hmm.
and then I don't really ever drink tea if I'm being honest.
No,
What about you?
this one's tough. I think I'm gonna go no particular order here, but I love a good cold brew, like
Cold brew is good.
a good cold brew. It's so hard to beat, like especially in the morning. That has to be up there, and I don't care how you dress it up. I personally, I'll drink mine just straight black, like nothing in it. Like I like the bitterness in the coffee. So a good cold brew, I would say number two in the list, but not necessarily ranking them. It's got to be like any of the energy drinks with a heavy value in nootropics. So Gorilla Mind, Ghost Energy, First Form, Bum
Bum.
Energy, all those ones that like they'll give you the alpha GPC. They have a good dose of that. They have the other, whether it be cognizant or whatever it might be, even if they use some of the carnitine in there as well. All those ones that have the nootropics, those have my heart through and through. And then
Mhm.
lastly, it's not like just like you, like I have pre-workout. I take pre-workout because it's got, it's whatever, but I like the bubbles. So any of the like just trashy, and I say trashy in like this term, But hear me out. Any of the trashy energy drinks, like just those like those monsters, those white monsters, the white Rockstar Zeros, like all those. Like I
Sugar-free
love,
Red Bull.
yeah, like I love all those, baby. Those are so good. Like yeah, they hurt my fucking teeth and my stomach, and it hurts coming back out. But God, it's so good.
For the
You
culture.
know? Yeah, it's like the four that you see at the bar. Like you gotta go for it.
All right.
Yeah.
No,
But
that
I
that's good.
love those monsters. Those are
Yeah,
so good.
no, they're never gonna go out of style either.
Yeah. White Monster Wednesdays.
White Monster Wednesdays tomorrow.
Yep. Um,
Alrighty. Let's see. Another good one I got also from Hunter Lakey. Thoughts on coaches saying that the standard for strength is lower than we think. This has been something that I've heard. He just asked it. Um, Strength standards to me are interesting because I was trying to. I'm sure there's like I want to know where they originated from. I think it
yeah.
was I had kind of a tough time finding what they originated from and even like what they were based off of because I think it's going to be sport dependent. First off, gender is going to play a role too, like male versus female.
Yeah.
And I think people kind of they're just a bit arbitrary. Usually when we think of strength standards, we think of 2 times body weight squat, 1.5 times body weight bench press, and like that just doesn't fit a lot of people. I think like because you're talking relative strength there. I think in weight
Yeah.
class sports that can be a lot more applicable for a wrestler. Obviously, like you have to be at this certain weight. Okay, let's get as relatively as strong as possible. But then I think for sport like baseball, where there's no weight class and it's largely
You're
a
looking,
strength power sport,
there's
absolute
no
power,
coefficients in
absolute
the
strength.
jungle.
Exactly, exactly. So like you just absolute strength is king there, given that you're not sacrificing other things that are important to that sport. And I think it can be. I don't. I can't really. I'm not calling anyone out directly, but I think people can kind of use it as a cop out to like their kids aren't strong or like to like. I feel like max strength has gotten kind of a bad rap because people are starting to realize that speed is more important than we probably thought it was, which is good,
hmm
but that doesn't mean that we just never train strength and people
We
can't get
just
strong.
we swung the
Yeah,
pendulum so far in the other direction.
which is how it always goes, right?
Yeah.
But we got to bring it back to the middle. It can't be an excuse to just not get strong and not train strength. So, yeah, I think, and it's such a weird question, like the standard for strength, like what does that even mean? And it's lower than we think. And what is that based off of? I think a lot of people will say like once you're fighting for change plates, like, 2.5s and fives on the bar, then you're probably starting to hit the point of diminishing returns. I think
hmm
that's not a bad. I think that's solid for the most part. But I don't know. What do you think? A lot of nuance there. A lot
Yeah.
of gray area too.
I have to pee because this is going through me so quick. Can we pause? I'll be right back.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll just keep talking here.
Okay. If you're cool with talking, I'll let it
Yeah,
roll, but I was just gonna pause this, but cool, I'll be right back.
it's all good.
Fill it in. Give
Yeah.
your
So I
opinions.
think I think like I said, it's very sport dependent. I asked one of the people that I work with currently with the Cubs about this, and he kind of gave the same thing. He thinks that they're kind of mostly wash for a lot of sports besides weight class sports, and I think it depends on like certain positions within a sport. A guy that's a 350-pound lineman in football, that's going to be a lot tougher for them to reach that 2 times body weight squat because that's 700 pounds versus like a skill guy who weighs 180, they squat 360, and bam, that's already 2x body weight. They're literally half. The one guy's literally twice the size of the other. So I think that's where it can get a little bit skewed. Um, and every level is going to be different too. I remember like when I was an undergrad assistant at Simpson, we obviously collected like a lot of data, and like you can't really tell it's going to be different for every like level. Like a Division 3 level athlete, strength wise, could be a lot different from a mediocre D3 athlete's going to be different than an all conference or all American Division 1 athlete. So I think that's kind of like you have to collect. You can compare to like past players at that position at that level, but and it's also like kind of this illusion that like okay, once they get the 2x bodyweight squat, that's it. Like strength is
Yeah.
no longer like important. Like it's always going to be, if you whatever type of programming you do, you're going to include some sort of strength work in some capacity, more or less, and depending on the time of year. So I think that not that people are looking at it wrong, but it's almost like we're kind of rushing to the point where okay, let's just get them strong enough, and then we can focus on like the more important stuff. Like strength is also important, and I think it's gotten kind of I feel like it's got kind of shit on low key. Like people just don't want to get super strong, and I'm not saying that's the old adage like, oh, we're not training powerlifters, we're not training bodybuilders. Yes, obviously, but we still need to be strong.
I think I think this is so I think it gets a little bit, and we have a question that kind of goes off this in a bit here, but everyone's in a rush to do the really cool shit, right? But you have to be able to withstand. I don't want to say just withstand, but you have to be able to absorb and redirect force in a fashion. You have to be able to produce the eccentric braking forces to secure yourself or prepare the athlete to be robust enough in order to do the cool shit. Um, and the lower the training age of the athlete, the more you get out of that basic stuff. That's a huge thing that we've talked on a bunch of times. And like you said, I think strength training itself, whether it be absolute strength or just relative strength, but strength training has gotten a really bad rap and gotten shit on over the last couple of years because everyone's starting to understand that speed is, speed or the power that you want to do. And I use power as like how fast can we exhibit the necessary force in order to accomplish the goals that are set ahead, whether that be jumping for a ball or jumping out of a block or hitting someone within a short area and accelerating into them in order to have that contact. Those things are very important for the actual sport. To an extent, though, strength training, I think the biggest piece for me is it's gonna play a role in how much force can you exhibit when you do it fast, um, whether that be a jump. You can be a really springy athlete, but if you have no musculature, maybe you can only jump a couple of times, or maybe you can only tackle somebody a couple of times. And when you do you have enough mass that's going to protect yourself as well as them? So like you kind of talked about like, oh, we don't train powerlifters or bodybuilders. Like, correct, you don't. But you have to take those pieces from their training in order to build a complete athlete because that's your job.
Right.
You don't just want someone who's really fast unless you're in track and field and you're training a sprinter. They also have to be contextually strong in those positions, whether that be training the hip flexor, the adductor, the groin, the abductor, the hamstring, all that extra stuff to be able to have those contacts bled together. In contact sports or even just sports that where you might have contact, even in like basketball or baseball, hypertrophy training or strength training is going to add cross-sectional areas on the musculature, so that way they can repeat those actions multiple times without breaking down. The absolute strength that you do, I think, is important because, like you said, and like we touched on, there's no coefficients in the jungle. Like in a sport like baseball, you want to be as strong as possible because that's going to help you with how you throw. It's going to help you with how hard you can hit. Those are two very important aspects in baseball. And it's like you can be really skillful in swinging a bat and have a good eye, but when you make contact and it doesn't go yard, there's a problem right there, and that now becomes a limiting factor that is going to probably inhibit your performance in some way, shape, or form. Now, relating that back to strength standards and that they're lower than what they are, this is a really hard part for me because I train power based in a lot of the aspects. I don't neglect strength training though. I think that's where a lot of people get that aspect, and because they want to do the cool stuff. Power training can build strength. That is absolutely true. I'm not saying that it can't. I think you can't neglect true strength training at some points in the year because like you can always get stronger. And I say this in the context of like most people, most athletes can get stronger. Is it always a necessity? No, but you can get stronger. And I think that's where people get kind of lost and they lose the forest for the trees here, is that while our prerequisite, whatever it may be, the objective or arbitrary standards that you have set forth in order to get to the next goal, but it goes back to how many people are truly advanced athletes. Like you can have a 6-year senior who they're still maybe only 6, 7 years into their career of lifting. They
Mm-hmm.
probably have a lot more meat on the bone in order to continue to train strength and see gains from that aspect. I don't think you should only train strength and then move on to something and only train it that way. I think that those should be kind of ran in a concurrent model or vertical integration, whatever you want to call it. And those things have to be trained continuously and touched on those aspects in order to at least maintain those strength residuals, if not try to improve them at least minutely over periods of time. When you do that, you help the athlete. And I think it's a little bit of an excuse to move on and do the cool stuff because everyone's very eager to do the cool stuff because it gets you more attention.
Right.
Um, and I think that kind of leads into this next question that we got. And this is a banger one. Shout out Alex Projeski. He hit me with this one. And he's one of my mentors, and this kind of rings true. But why does modern S&C opt into audience capture versus actual training, and they run from lifting heavy and doing sprinting and running, the basic stuff. And just like we said when Kel was on the podcast, do the basics savagely well. Is it pretty? No, but it's going to get the job done. And I think a lot of people are starting to see that there's money to be made and there's things to, whether it be looked at as if you're socially a genius from like the appearance standard, but a lot of modern S&C is opting into more cutesy stuff or the fluff stuff that gains audience capture. And so like, what's your opinion on that? Like, why do you think that that's a thing?
Well, at the risk of sounding like an old geezer, it's the damn social medias. The
Mm-hmm.
social media definitely plays a part because I think it's great that coaches are starting to leverage that into building a platform and like making secondary income and like using it really as a recruiting tool, especially at the
Mm-hmm.
college level or for their private practice. I think it's good that people are sharing. I'll start off by saying it's good that people are sharing their training. I think a lot of times, like in the past, people would have been all cloak and dagger about, oh, I don't want them to steal my shit.
Yeah.
When really, like, have you done like nothing's original in S&C for the most part. It's just spin-offs of what people have done in the past. So I think it's good that people are starting to share it. As far as like what's flashy, you also have to think of, and we've talked about this before, like you see one post and that's what percent of their training, like that could be 10% of their training. Like they might have that and then everything else is, the basics. But obviously it's sexier to post the thing that looks cool than to just post the regular stuff because people get bored of that and think, oh, old school, when really a lot of times the simple basic training is probably best for most people. Um, the person that comes to my mind is Joel Seedman.
Yeah.
Just like stuff like that, and that's frustrating because it's interesting. That's all that guy posts, but then he claims that that's only 10% of my training. Okay, but that's 100% of your posts. You clearly are leveraging that, and like these are people that are training, like they might train pro athletes. I'm like I can't speak to like their entire training program. I mean, it's tough with social media to know what these people are really doing, if they're just doing that for the camera and then just never actually, they could train their athletes completely different.
Yeah.
When I try to post, I try to just either post my own training and then like there's no argument, like that's what I did, or post like what we're actually doing. I'm not trying to post like, oh, we're doing this fancy shit. Like, try to be mostly like as transparent as I can. If I had to say, I mean, obviously heavy lifting is hard, especially after a point.
Yeah.
It's tough to do hard things, so you avoid them. I mean, to me, sprinting is fun. but can also be hard. I listened to a podcast once where, you know, someone had a theory of to like why these people that are seemingly doing like this gimmicky training tend to get high level people, like high level clients. Like, why is that? And I think we kind of forget that just because someone's a high level athlete, like they don't know a lot about actual training. Like they probably got
Hmm.
there a lot by talent, and then it's our job to train them. And we know a lot about training ideally. So some people just can't judge. And then it's also like some of that stuff looks really cool and looks, functional, sports specific. I'm using air quotes if you're not watching this on the YouTubes. Um, and usually sport training is really hard. So if you can do something that you can say it's functional and it's sports specific and it's actually easier than like just getting under a heavy barbell or, sprinting, it makes you feel good because you're like, oh, this isn't as hard, but it's still helping me. It's kind of a, I don't know, weird thing to think about. I don't know if I really illustrated that very well, but
No, I think you
what are your
did.
thoughts on that?
I think you kind of hit it on the head. It's like in terms of like the question, so I'm gonna start by what you said and then kind of work our way back here. I think you're right. Like sports training is hard. Like there's going to be a lot more failures, especially like as someone is a developing athlete. Like they might not catch the ball, or they might not make 100 jump shots, or they might go to throw a curveball and it ends up being way outside of the box. You know, doing all that day in and day out, and it's very very difficult. Makes it they need something that's going to be enough in their brains to get them to improve with, or they look for that one special exercise that's going to be the next best thing. And how many of us have had an athlete or even ourselves as an athlete that, like, is there any drill I should be doing? Is there this? It's like, no, I just need you to keep doing the basic thing over and over and over again until it's ingrained and it's so subconscious that you don't even have to think about it anymore. I think that's a big piece in that. In terms of the question and kind of bringing this back, it's like, why is everyone kind of moving towards that audience capture? I think you really hit the nail on the head that it's like a lot of coaches can use the power of social media in order to make themselves a little bit more financially free in the aspect of like they're not reliant on the $50,000 salary that
Hmm.
they're making at usually that's really good in
That's
the industry.
good.
Yeah. So they want to be able to make that money elsewhere, whether that be from the viewership, ad revenue, getting private training clients and being able to get that. And if they get a bigger name, we've seen this 1,000 times, social media is going to follow the biggest name. The crowds will typically sheep towards that they'll flock towards that big name because they want to train with
Right.
that guy because he's famous. So they associate the fame with you're good, not you're famous. And it's a lot
Right.
harder for a lot of people to naturally just differentiate the two and have that distinguishment because they don't necessarily, like you said, have that knowledge of training. So they just say, well, who's famous, who's big? That's probably the guy I should train with, or the girl, whoever it might be. So they typically do that. And it's a lot of times like, look at how many, not to talk BS on people, but like, look how many girls claim to be a coach and their whole Instagram is just them showing their butt cheeks.
Yeah.
Like, you're not really a coach. You have a ton of audience capture because you show your butt. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's where everybody's trying to go is just gain these viewers, gain popularity so I can capitalize on it. And that's fine. Um, but you can't
Yeah.
ignore the
I'm all
basics.
for it. Go
Yeah.
capitalism, baby. Like get your
Yeah.
money. I'm trying to
Go
do
get
the
your
same
money.
thing.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right here.
I just
But I
look
think a
like
lot of
this.
yeah, the fact is that we're ugly. Like it's not gonna be as easy.
I'm
Um,
poor because I'm ugly. That's the only reason.
you're not ugly. You're just poor. I think
uh,
I think a lot of it is that, and it's like typically when you see people go who want there's that whether it be imposter syndrome or what they want to feel important, they want to feel special, and another reason for that is too is like you look at governing bodies and organizations when they host clinics, who do they bring in to talk? They don't bring in the coach who's like, well, we do really simple things and I coach the crap out of it and we're gonna go it. They bring in the people who have done something intricate or have a really, really large name and they just feed into those same, 10 to 15 to 30 people. That same people are speaking at every conference. And those same people who speak at every single conference have a large following. Well, everyone's trying to get to that level. So they want to post the audience captured ideas to get that following because then there's going to be demand. It's supply and demand. For every one of those people, there's 1,000 other coaches who do something either similar or whatever. So what gets your attention to go towards somebody? I think a lot of people want that. I mean, I myself want that. I would love to speak at a clinic and feel important and do all that stuff,
Yeah,
but you
me
can't
too.
ignore your actual training. Um, and I think you made a really, really, really good point in the aspect that that could be, even though it's 100% of their social media, that could be 10% of their training. But they found out what works for them, playing the algorithm, what kind of exercises or posts get the most attention. And we've seen it 1,000 times in ourselves too. It's like I got a video that 7 million views because it was some banded oscillatory flutter kicks, but then
Hmm.
you post your more general training where it's front squats, split squats, bench press, RDLs, and you get 100 likes. So
Right.
when you see that success, it's really hard to fight some of those things and say, well, I want to post the really good stuff, but it's like that's not getting the likes, and you kind of like maybe I'll post another weird one because people will like that, and
Right. And you get
you
away
have a lot of
from
like exactly.
you're less
You got to take
yeah,
a step
it's
back.
not yeah, it's you get away from who you really are and what you're actually trying to accomplish because you want to be popular.
Exactly, and that I think that's like a big thing is like, do you want to be good or do you want to be popular?
That's I was thinking about that too. Like there's people that me and you have never even heard of, or people that are listening to this never even heard of that probably run a are a strength coach at a small school or run their own, brick and mortar gym and are probably know more than all of us. And no one knows about them because they just don't post, but posting, having a social media to follow, it doesn't make you good. It doesn't make you bad. It's
But it
just
doesn't
it
make you
just
good. It just
yeah, it
gets you
doesn't make
more
you
known.
good. Yeah, it makes you more known, and you can get more known for doing good stuff or more known for being a fool.
And I think that's a big piece of it too. It's like sooner or later, you'll probably hit a breaking point where you either give up or you become that like bigger name or relatively known. What is it that you want to be known for? Do you want to be, you know, a Nick Shed or a Nick DeMarco, a Mike Tucker, a Jay DeMayo,
hmm
and do you want to be an Aaron Wiseman? Like, do you want to be the guy that they're like, wow, like we got to follow him because they post such good stuff and like it's all like it's good training, it's solid work. Or do you want to be a
Yeah,
Joel Seedman where you probably have a bigger brand name, or what's the other guy, Overtime Athletics or not, whatever it is, the
yeah,
guy who always posts in his mom's living room. But it's like, do you want to be them where they probably have a much bigger following and they probably make a little bit more, they probably make a lot of money off of it, but like it's it's just like shit that they're posting for social media, and it's
yeah,
like you have to make a conscious decision to fight whatever internal feeling that is to, be option one and just trust that over time it's going to get bigger and it's probably slower, but it's a more sustainable growth. And it's the same thing as whether it be stand-up comedy or an actor. It's like the faster you rise, the faster you fall because you are a flash in the pan. Do you want to be a
right.
flash in the pan or do you want to be a sustainable figure known for something good? Like look at Boosh Exeter. That he's massive, right? And he's done solid training as a master of whatever training aspects that there is and hammered it home. And now he's been a household name as far as strength coaches have been concerned for however long. Jimmy Radcliffe, same way. Jimmy Radcliffe is solid training and he's done it for 20 plus years and he's done insanely good work and just shown that same work over and over again. Lauren Landau, shout out Lauren Landau. If anyone doesn't know him, he was a private coach who ended up getting a job through uh, his gym to become
Yeah.
the strength coach of the Denver Broncos. Now he's the head strength coach at Notre Dame football. Solid training over and over and over again.
hmm
That's if he's going to post something, it's not flashy. It's the real training over and over again. But he's a respected figurehead in the industry, and he used that platform to promote good training. And he wrote the NSCA's and I believe the NCAA's ACL return to play protocol for using the upper body to get like essentially like time under tension to get a hormonal response in ACLs.
mm
Solid work, real work that's proven. And I think you have to be okay with what I'm doing right now might not make it happen, but this might add up over 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. And it's going to that those if I'm okay with the delayed gratification, it'll be much bigger than the instant flash in the pan that will go away really quick.
Yeah. I think you just gotta like hone your like work on your craft, hone your craft,
Mhm.
try to be the best coach you can every day, never stop learning, and then document your journey along the way. That's kind of how I look at it. Like the shit I post now, I might look at it 5 years from now and think, oh, I'd probably do that different. But
Yeah.
at the time, it was what you knew, and you did the best with what you knew, and that's all that really matters. That, along with learning from other people, um, being transparent. That's that's how I look at it.
Be open, be honest, be transparent, and always
Hmm.
continue to try to learn more and more and more. I mean, a great example of this is Mike Widango. That guy's insanely smart, and he's built an
Yes.
entire brand off of being insanely smart. And
Yes.
then he'll post something that it's basically a dressed up version of the absolute basic, and it works because he's found a way to get a little bit more juice out of something basic, but his root of it is still there, and he's going to admit that too.
Hmm.
That's how you do it, man. You be super smart. You overreach on the bell curve of being so smart, you walk it back. And
Hmm.
that's what I think of like a guy like that. It's like that's Buddy Morris.
Hmm.
Let's do the basic stuff and let's do it
Yes.
right. Let's make them masters of what they do, and we're going to use every little bit of training that we have to supplement that. And we're not going to get too cute with it. We're going to do real training all the time.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah,
And
that was a good one.
great question. Great
Yeah,
question. I got I got another question from Hunter Lakey. Shout out Lakey. Three questions. He
guys,
must have known that
guys
I
a
had
monster.
very few friends and I was in need of help. So shout out to you. Talk about loaded jumps. Loaded jumps. Are they overhyped? Too slow? Too slow for speed training? Maybe too light for strength training? This has been kind of a topic of debate too. I feel
Yeah,
like people have been bringing up the force velocity curve and saying basically you train both ends, you lift heavy, you sprint, the middle will take care of itself, which is honestly isn't. I think for like beginner, like low training age, I think you
that's
can
perfect.
really kind of get it. That's perfect. Like you don't need to worry about VBT and training in that middle zone. In my opinion, are loaded jumps overhyped? This goes back to the argument of we can kind of trace it back to the argument of Olympic lifts versus loaded jumps, which is just kind of I don't know. I'm kind of over it. Like, do what you
Yeah,
want.
it's
They can
been
both work.
killed.
Anything works. Just teach it right. Do what you want. Um, are they overhyped? I don't know. Obviously, like we know that nothing in the weight room is gonna touch velocity seen in sprinting. Like loaded jumps aren't gonna do that, but neither is any weight room exercise. So,
Mhm.
and I think they probably get the closest outside of just an unloaded plyo. Um, and I do think that they can kind of bridge that gap between like, you know, as an athlete gets more advanced, you don't want to just be doing stuff that's super slow and high force in the weight room. You want a little bit more of a velocity component. Um, it's kind of a way to bridge, that explosive strength, if you will. Like
Mhm.
not just doing, I don't know. It's a way to bridge the gap. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
I think they're helpful. I utilize them. I don't know if they're overhyped. It depends on how you looked at them to begin with. I don't think they're the end all be all to athletic performance, but no single
exercises.
exercise ever is. Um,
I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that it's a piece, just like Olympic lifts are, just like a squat variation is. It's one piece of the entire picture. I think they're a great way to both express some kind of explosive strength or explosive power, whether that be speed, strength, speed, starting strength, whatever it is. All those like smaller, minute components along that force velocity curve. It's a small piece of it. And the nice thing about them, and this is where I don't think they're as overhyped as people claim them to be, is once you know how to jump, you're just adding an external implement to give some kind of constraint on it, whether you want to slow it down or make it more forceful or have a longer ground contact time.
mhm.
You're just training another aspect. Understand what you're trying to get out of that point, and from there, you can use it as a tool. That's the same thing as whether it be an Olympic lift variation or any other thing. What are you trying to get out of it? No exercise is going to cover every base inside the weight room. And if you believe that it is, it's not going to be doing as much. If it accomplishes 19 different things, it's probably only doing that at surface level and not being a very directed and trusted aspect to get what you want to desire out of it. That's why there's accessory movements. That's why there's single joint exercises versus a compound. Yes, some of them may play a bigger important piece because they'll cover two or three aspects. But I look at it in the aspect of dynamic correspondence. Like, are you getting the same force application that you want in order to get that? Are you in that same vector, right? Are the mechanics of it in the same? Is it the same muscular tissue that's going through? Is there the context of the whatever? If you fit, one of those components and you're like, well, I want it for this reason, you're fine. If it fits five of those components and you're like, well, this is going to have a direct, some way, shape, or form, it'll have a direct correlation or an indirect correlation that can enhance what their athletic ability is. Cool. Just know what it is, know what you're using it for versus like, well, I'm just doing it because I like loaded jumps. Well, why? What's the said principle here? What's our specific adaptation that we're trying to induce? And is this the right method to do the imposed to get? Is this the right method for as an imposed demand to get that specific adaptation? If not, then do something else. If it is, then go ahead and do it because it's a low barrier for entry. Anyone can come in, grab a pair of dumbbells and jump, or put a barbell on their back, pull it tight, and jump. It's low intrusiveness into a session, and you can get a little bit out of it. So yeah, do it. Hit 3x3, hit 5 sets of 3, whatever it is. But don't treat it as an end all be all to any athletic performance program or sports performance program. I think that's where people get into the weeds and get lost in it. Can't get lost in the sauce.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it there. For compare, like you can compare it to, people like to compare it to Olympic lifts all day, and like they're different. They might hit similar qualities, but they're different. They're not the same. So if it's not exactly the same, it's tough to really compare them. I think it's kind of foolish to argue over which is better and worse. I think I've
They're going
kind
to be
of
better and worse for each situation that you deal with.
yeah. Yeah. So overhyped, yes and no, depending on how you're looking at it there. But
As
good question.
always, it depends.
Yeah. Hate to have the cop out of it depends, but shit,
Yeah,
it
but
always
it's true.
does. Yep. You got any more?
I got one more. Shout out Drew Quinlan. He was an intern at Elon. He's at Northwestern. I think they're still in the NAIA playoffs.
Oh yeah.
Um, Uptime Energy. He wants our opinions on that.
Uptime energy.
So, Uptime Energy was an energy drink that actually kind of got into a little bit of a legal battle with 3D because
That's
3D's
right.
original name was Up, and they had
Mm-hmm.
the bottles, and they had like a little bit of a feud. Uptime, so 3D became 3D. They switched to more of a can. I like 3D energy drinks. I like Christian Guzman. I don't think he ever had any ill will or bad intent when he did that. Two different things. Uptime, I think they're depending on the flavor, pretty tasty, solid caffeine source, but it's just like anything else. It's an energy drink. I don't think they are going to wow you. I think they're a little overpriced, but the bottle is kind of cool. They do like the metal bottle with the screw
Mm-hmm.
off that can screw
I
back
remember
on,
that.
but you're not really screwing on or screwing off a carbonated beverage because it's going to go flat. Um, I would say take it or leave it. If you want to spend the extra money for cleaner ingredients, go for it, and you like the flavors. Otherwise, they're not as widely available. They're a little pricey. Not that much caffeine, so
Yeah, I
I
can't
would
remember the
take
last time I've seen one, so
yeah,
availability is probably the main issue there.
yeah.
Um,
Take it or leave
Unique
it.
look though.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
unique. You're a unique thing. It's a cool corner to kind of get into in the market. But if I were to rate it on every single thing, and maybe I'll try and get my hands on one, it's probably going to be like a 5.8, 6.3
Yeah.
in between
It's
that
gonna be mid.
range. Yeah,
It's gonna
it's
be
gonna be
mid.
pretty mid. But
Yeah.
if you got nothing else, go for it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I got a couple more from my buddy Canyon here. A couple of yes, he said try sparkling ice caffeine. We've already tried that, Bubba. Why don't you go back and thanks for letting me know you don't listen to my podcast without saying you don't listen to my podcast. But
yeah,
no, we did do sparkling ice caffeine. Um,
This guy's been ripping them
Back,
for however many months when he was in the Dominican
yeah, that's all
Republic. How
there
many
is in
episodes?
DR. And then I get a little funny one to end off here. Best when, I'm assuming you meant best way. Best way to recover with a sore ass after leg day. Well, if your ass is sore after a leg day, hopefully that means you had a good workout. Just deal with it, do some active recovery, keep working out consistently, and you'll probably be less sore over time. That's all I can say about that. There's not like a,
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
yeah,
What are you
why are
doing
you
at the
sore
gym?
in your
Yeah,
ass?
what are you doing at the gym?
Yeah,
But like you said,
dude, deal with it.
go back, go
Do
back,
some,
go back tomorrow.
yeah,
Keep
go
working
back
out.
tomorrow. Definitely don't just do nothing. Go on a walk,
Yeah,
hop on a bike for 30 minutes, get some blood flow in your ass.
and in 2 days, go hit another leg workout, and trust me, over the next 2 months, you'll be
Big
better.
difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll be happy you did it.
that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Alrighty. Should we get a
Well,
ranking on these? And well, you've already given a ranking on your black cherry
yeah,
yellow.
yeah, it still stands.
It's an unreal
One of
drink.
my favorites.
C4 Jolly Rancher. This might be one of the best C4s out there. Um, I like the blue raspberry. I think the green apple is better. Um, but out of C4s, like the Starburst and the Skittles, unreal. This plays right onto those. I would say with ingredients, with the price, availability. I found this at the small local grocery store in my parents' hometown that has 1,700 people. I'm gonna say 8.4. 8.4.
Okay, very
Put that
solid.
on there. Yeah, very solid. Artie's making her appearance again. But
Huge
yeah,
dog.
as always, you guys, holiday season's here. We appreciate you for taking the time to watch. We've definitely got a lot more subscribers now, a lot more listeners. We appreciate it a ton, coming into this
Yep.
time of year. I'm super thankful for what we've been able to build so far. But like us on Instagram. We are bevbois.tv. I am bszutkowski, bszut KOWSKI. Christian is
I
French
am.
underscore. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. French underscore fit 40 on the gram. Um, yeah, huge shout out to everyone who submitted questions to the Q&A. Really appreciate it. There was definitely some good conversation had. So definitely have
Yeah,
to do one of these again.
we love it. We've been able to do this because you guys definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. We are at Bev Boys. The channel name is Behind the Barbell, but definitely if you just search Bev Boys on there, we will populate. We are now kind of into their algorithm because of everything you've ever done for us. Like the video, give us some comments on there. We'd love it. Follow us on our socials. Definitely go to bevboys.com. That is the best website in the entire freaking world. You guys can pick up some gear, see some cool photos of us. And I think that's all we got.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Happy holidays.